Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I just finished season 1 of the newest MCU Disney Plus show, Hawkeye. It stars Jeremy Renner, Hailee Steinfeld, Vera Farmiga, Tony Dalton, Alaqua Cox, and many more. And it follows the Avenger, of course, and he gets his own show at last, which I'm so happy he does. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the show yet, go watch it on Disney Plus while you're at it, and then come right back here. And with that said, let's get started. Set around Christmas time, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, must leave his family on a mission where he teams up with Kate Bishop, played by Hailee Steinfeld, and they get caught in a conspiracy that involves the mafia, and it involves his time as Ronin, and Clint must stop it and return to his family in order to make it for Christmas. I've wanted to see Hawkeye get his own solo property in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for years. I always felt like he's a very underappreciated Avenger amongst the characters like Iron Man and Captain America, Hulk, Thor, and even Black Widow. And I'm so happy that he finally got his own property. While it's not a movie, it is a 6-episode Disney Plus series, and I could not be more happier. I was so happy that he finally got justice. He finally got his own show that focuses on him. And it's safe to say that I had a fun time with the show. I really enjoyed it. It's not as big in scale like shows like Loki or WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Hawkeye is very fun. It's easygoing, and it's just fun. I really enjoyed the Christmas setting because I love watching Christmas movies or an episode of a TV show in that setting. So I really liked that this whole series is set around Christmas time, and I really enjoyed it. It's really nice to see. There are some Christmas songs that play from time to time, and even the colors for it look really great, and there's some really fun moments that happen because of that setting. So that's something I really liked. The second thing I really liked is the acting. I really like Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, and this is easily one of my favorite performances from him as his character, maybe even number one, because we got to spend so much time with him in these 6 episodes, and I really enjoyed him here, especially seeing Jeremy deal with the fallout of Endgame and dealing with Black Widow's death. And I also got to say, I loved his dynamic with Kate Bishop. Jeremy Renner and Hailee Steinfeld were so fun, and they were great together. They had really great chemistry on screen. They had some really great moments with one another, whether it's them trying to get away from the tracksuit mafia or whether they're just having a one-on-one conversation in an apartment room or anything. There are a lot of great chemistry moments between the two of them, and they were so fun to watch over these 6 episodes, and it's something I really enjoyed. One of my favorite duos to come out of Phase 4 from WandaVision to today. Really enjoyed their dynamic. And Vera Farmiga is really great as Eleanor Bishop, and I really liked her character and seeing how she's responding to what Kate's doing on the show, and that she has her own little thing going on in the story. And I thought Tony Dalton was also really great as Jack Duquesne because he's the stepfather. I always felt like something was off with his character, and he does a really good job with his character, his accent, and how he just portrays his character. I thought was really great. There's some fun moments to be had with him in the middle to back half of the episode. So I really enjoyed him. And I really liked Alaqua Cox. Forgive me if I mispronounced her name. I really enjoyed her as Echo. She did such a great job. I really liked her part in the story, especially with how she ties into the Ronin story and all of that, and see how she wants Ronin to be destroyed and all that. I really liked her in the show, especially the fight sequences she's in on the show. I really enjoyed her. She's great, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her get her own spin-off show for Disney Plus. That I'm really looking forward to. And Fra Fee, who played Kazi, I enjoyed him. There are some nice things here and there. I would have liked more of him and more development from his character, but I thought he did good acting-wise for what he had to work with. And 2 people that I really liked that showed up on the show. Florence Pugh returned as Elena from Black Widow, and I really liked her. I thought her Russian accent is fantastic. She's really fun to watch, and there are some really funny moments that happen with her too. And I love her scenes with Kate and Jeremy, and she and Hailee Steinfeld have such great dynamic with one another that I really enjoyed watching on the big screen. And I liked how they handled her story for the most part. And then we got to see the return of Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. Now, I love the Daredevil TV show. It is my favorite Marvel TV show of all time, and it's just so superbly acted. And I loved that Vincent came back as Wilson Fisk for this show, even though it wasn't until like the end of episode 5. But I love that we got to see him again. And then also adds the fact that, spoiler alert for Spider-Man No Way Home, how we got Charlie Cox back is Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, for a scene in No Way Home. And now we got Vincent back as Kingpin. I love that, and I really enjoyed Kingpin on the show. I would have liked more of him, and I felt his presence because he is the looming danger over the course of the show, but really enjoyed him nonetheless. Vincent D'Onofrio is perfect as this character. Loved him on Daredevil, and I loved him here. The acting in general is just really great. I really enjoyed what we got here, and that is a huge positive that I just really enjoyed. The acting is just really great. One thing I actually really liked from the show was that it explored Clint's time as Ronin. In Avengers Endgame, you got a scene of him killing the Yakuza in the middle of the movie, and you don't get much of his time as Ronin beyond that. But this show fixed that. We got to spend a lot more time with that era of Clint. We got to see how dangerous that was and what he had to do, especially what being Ronin did to certain characters, especially Echo, and how she ties into the story and just the whole crime thing. I really liked how they handled Ronin. It really shows you how dark of a time that was, especially for Clint, as he just lost his family during the 5-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame. So I really liked how the show was able to depict what happened when he was Ronin, and thankfully it was pretty violent stuff. They didn't tone back on that as much, so that was a good thing. And because you feel the consequences of him being Ronin, because of all the enemies he made because of it, and how when the Ronin suit was spotted in New York City, Kate was wearing it in the first episode, you realize how being Ronin was such a bad thing for Clint, and how this is a very big consequence, because now he realizes he has to stay in New York. He has to get this over with because he wants to get back in time for Christmas with his family. Cannot do that as long as this is happening. So I love how you see more of what happened with Clint when he was Ronin, how it affected him, and how it made him feel as the season progresses, and why he has to do what he has to do in the show. So I really enjoyed that. It gave us more time with him as Ronin. And this show it's one of the best uses of the MCU trying to balance humor and emotional moments, because one of my issues with some of the recent installments is that they have an emotional moment, but then they undercut it with a joke, and I feel like it just ruins the moment for me, especially in Shang-Chi, which I do love, by the way. And I like that with Hawkeye. In episode 3, there's a scene where Nate calls Clint, and I love how it's a very emotional scene, and they didn't undercut it with a joke, especially in episode 4 when Clint talks to Kate about Nat and how he is, when she finds out that he's Ronin, and especially when he told her about what happened with Nat, how he met her and all that. I love that they didn't undercut it with a joke, because a lot of recent MCU projects have done that, and at times it really doesn't work all that much, because these moments need to breathe. And I feel like what I love about the show is it does it so well. It lets the emotional moments play out, and it doesn't get undercut with the humor of the show. But whenever there is humor, it's done well. They don't overuse it, and there's some really great quips and comedic moments here and there, and they are done so well. This is easily one of the best MCU projects to display how to do a good balance between humor and emotional moments. And I really hope more MCU projects do that, because Hawkeye did such a great job at having funny moments here and there and having emotional moments while letting them breathe and not undercut it with anything else. another thing that I actually really dug about Hawkeye is that this is the most grounded of the MCU shows, because you had WandaVision, which was part sitcom, and then part MCU spectacle. And then you had Falcon the Winter Soldier, which was grounded, but it's also more international. They go to places kind of across the globe. And then Loki is very mystical and very mysterious, and it's more other world stuff like that. And then you got What If, which deals with alternate realities, but Hawkeye stands out because it's the most grounded. And it made me feel like this is a Marvel Netflix show in a way, because the Marvel Netflix shows are really grounded. They focus more on the New York street side of things, and they don't have like all these mystical elements aside from Iron Fist. But I really liked with Hawkeye that it stands out amongst the shows because it's the most grounded. It has the most real world street level stuff. There wasn't no mystical threat or somebody with powers or, oh, the city's going to blow up. No, it's just a simple street story, simple grounded stuff with a character like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. And I really liked that. It felt really nice, and it was really fun to watch, especially coming off of a show like What If. It also brought back Florence Pugh as Elena, and again, she is my favorite part of the Black Widow movie. She's really fun to watch. She's a terrific actress as well, and I really liked what they do with her in the show, even though I do have a problem with the fact that I felt like they introduced her too late into the show, because they didn't introduce her until the final 15 to 20 minutes of episode 4, and then you only had like 2 episodes left. And I feel like I wish they gave the show more episodes with that, because I do like what they did with Elena, especially the scene between her and Clint where they finally talk about what actually happened with Nat, and that Nat sacrificed herself. And I really liked Florence Pugh as an actress, and she had great scenes with Kate Bishop, played by Hailee Steinfeld. They are very funny moments here and there, especially their talk in Kate's apartment about what she wants to do in New York City, why she's here, and all that. She's great. She's always just a scene stealer. I really love her on this show, and she is easily really fun to watch. And I'm really interested in seeing what they do with Elena from where they left off with her on the show. Oh, and episodes 3 to 6. And for the most part, this show is pretty consistently great. I thought the first 2 episodes were entertaining, even though they were a little slow. But I thought that episode 3 is when the show really kicks off. And I thought it's consistently great from that area, aside from a few things about that finale. But I really enjoyed the show. It feels fast-paced around episode 3 all the way till the end. And it's just fun. Great episodes, some great stuff that I really enjoyed. The action was good. I thought the action was really great from episodes 3 to 6. In the first 2 episodes, they were fine. They had some cool stuff here and there, but they felt kind of weirdly edited at times. And because it's very snowy in those action sequences, it felt like I sometimes couldn't tell what was happening, especially because it was at night. But in episode 3 to 6, I really liked the action we got there. In episode 3, there was a one shot in the car where Clint and Kate are trying to get away from Echo and the tracksuits, and that was clever. I really enjoyed how they were able to pull that off, because that gave me one-shot vibes from Daredevil hallway fights, and seeing them use their trick arrows and all that is really fun, and they look great even from a visual effects standpoint. In episode 4, I really dug the fight between Clint, Kate, Elena, and Echo, and it looked cool. Just seeing you have 2 versus 2 other people who are just not working together, and it's just seeing them fight. That was cool, especially with how it ends with the reveal of who that masked person is, and it was revealed to be Elena. And then in episode 5, I really liked the fight between Clint and Echo. While Clint was in the Echo suit, it was awesome to see him wear the suit on the show again. And I really enjoyed that fight they had there. It felt brutal. It felt like very skilled right there. and I liked how it played out. And in episode 6, we had the fight between Clint and Kate and the tracksuits on Rockefeller's ice skating rink, which I thought was fun, and it looked great, especially between Clint and the tracksuits earlier in that episode, and then Kate versus Fisk. Now, they did make Fisk a lot more powerful here in terms of strength than they did on Daredevil in Netflix, and it was nice because it feels more like they make Fisk a more stronger foe, even though he was always great as a character, especially from Daredevil and Hawkeye. But I really enjoyed the fight. Just seeing Kate is against Fisk, it's like, he's very strong. How is she going to take him down? And then you got like trick arrows and stuff, which I thought awesome. I really liked the bow and arrow scenes in this show. It was cool to watch. And another thing I love is the suits. They finally gave Hawkeye and Kate Bishop comic book suits, and it looks great. This is easily the best suit Hawkeye has in the MCU, and I love it. And it had a nice resolution in the end where Clint and Kate, they go back to Clint's family after this whole thing is resolved, and it was a nice ending to the show. However, I have a few issues with this show that hold it back from being even greater than it is. The first thing I have to say is the show feels the most rushed. WandaVision's ending felt rushed, especially, and Falcon the Winter Soldier, maybe the ending did go quickly and you feel like you kind of missed some things. But Hawkeye felt like the most rushed show out of the 5 Disney Plus shows. It felt like they needed a lot more than 6 episodes, especially with certain character arcs, for example, Echo. I really liked what they were doing here with her on the show, and it felt like you had a scene with Fisk, how she wants time off, and then she's back at her apartment looking like she's ready to go, and then the next time you see her, she fights Kazi, and it just feels like we missed a whole episode on that, and I feel like the show needed a lot more of that, especially with certain side characters. I feel like we needed a lot more of Jack Duquesne and how he ties into this and all. And even with Fisk, because they introduced him at the very end of episode 5, right before the finale, and I would have liked a lot more episodes. I feel like 8 to 10 would have fared a lot better for the show than 6 episodes, because I felt like with 6 episodes felt very limiting to the show and what it tries to do with all these different characters and stories, that I feel like they needed a lot more than that. So because it was 6 episodes, it felt rushed. The second thing I have to say is Elena. I really enjoyed her on the show, but I definitely felt like they introduced her a little too late into the show, because we're already at the halfway mark. We're already 2 episodes away from the end, and you finally introduce Elena. So then we had to see what happened to her during Infinity War, and how she fits into all this. And I just can't help but feel like we needed more episodes. We need a whole episode around that where we get a good chunk of her, because it felt like they sort of rushed the whole her wanting revenge on Clint for what happened to Nat, which was set up at the end of Black Widow with the post-credit scene. And I can't help but feel like the show needed to introduce her sooner, because it felt like a late added plot line that they added to the show. And I think it was rumored that the writers of Hawkeye didn't know about this post-credit scene at Black Widow until the movie came out or something. And so that sort of explains why they introduced her this late into the show. But as much as I enjoyed her on the show with Kate and Clint and the action, and especially how they resolved that with her and Clint, I feel like we needed a lot more time with her, and that also adds to my problem that there should have been more than 6 episodes. Another issue I have, which isn't as big as the other problems I just mentioned, is that the first 2 episodes are enjoyable, but they're slow. It had probably one of the more slower starts to an MCU show, because the first episode, they had to introduce an entirely new character, and because there were only 6 episodes, they had to completely develop her character so much, where it's like, this is Kate, this is her mom, this is what happened to her in the events of the Battle of New York, which is how the show opened, and you also had to learn what she can do. And just they try to kick off all this, and you see what happens with Clint, with his family, and how they're in New York and all that. It felt like they were fun episodes, but I didn't feel like the plot really kicks into high gear until the third episode. And while the first two episodes are fun, especially the LARPing scene in episode 2 with Clint that I really enjoyed, really, really fun stuff, I couldn't help but feel like it took a bit for them to finally get going, because Loki was able to just go right off the bat, and WandaVision was able to go right off the bat. What If is a different story. And then Falcon the Winter Soldier, it also, in a way, didn't really kick into gear until episodes 2 to 3. But I feel like Hawkeye took a bit to really pick up, because while the first 2 episodes are, again, they're fun, there's some fun moments, it especially develops Kate and Clint, especially with what happened to them. Clint, since we last saw him, it felt like they had a really slow start, and at times it made the first 2 episodes feel a little bit underwhelming compared to the next 4 episodes that followed. There are some nitpicks I could make with the show, because in the Black Widow post-credits scene, Val gave Elena the tablet and revealed, like, oh, here's your target for who killed Nat, and it's Clint. But in the show, it's like Val didn't exist. It's like, did they forget Val was the one that hired Elena to do this, or told Elena that Clint's the one that killed Nat? And because then they replaced it to where it's like, it's tied to Fisk, which is weird, because it didn't feel like that's what the Black Widow movie set up. So there are a few nitpicks here and there, but they're not big issues or anything. But there were kind of some things where I was like, that's interesting. The finale it's a fun episode. I enjoyed it. There are some fun moments here and there, especially with Kate and Elena and Clint and the fight sequences and Fisk. There were some fun moments, but it also felt a little underwhelming because it's 1 hour and 1 minute long. There were there was a lot of things happening in that episode, and Echo's story felt rushed in that finale. And I feel like because they needed more episodes, which they really did need, it felt like the finale wasn't as properly done as it could be, because the ideas they had for the finale were great, all great ideas. But because there were 6 episodes, it felt like they kind of crammed a lot of this stuff into the finale. And it felt like some of this stuff could have been done better. And especially with some of the side characters, because Eleanor and Jack didn't do as much in this finale as I thought they would. And I feel like some of the supporting characters could have been better utilized than they were. And I feel like the finale could have been better with the ideas it had if there were more episodes. And lastly, another minor issue is I did not care for that post-credit scene at the very end of the finale, because usually with post-credit scenes at the end, they would hint something big. With WandaVision, it sets up Multiverse of Madness. With Falcon the Winter Soldier, it sets up Sharon as the power broker and a potential Captain America 4. Loki, it just teases, it confirms a season 2. And What If, season 1's finale sets up a season 2. With this, it was kind of weird to end this show with that post-credit scene, because while I did think Rogers the Musical was a fun idea, especially in that pilot episode, it feels weird that the post-credit scene is just Rogers the Musical, that whole sequence playing out. It feels like a weird way to end things, because I was really hoping that they would confirm, is there going to be a season 2, what to expect next, or even what happened to Fisk. Because it looked like Echo shot him, but you didn't see his body, and usually that Hollywood rule is no body, no death. And so I have a feeling he's not dead, but I wish that they actually showed what happened to him so I can get an idea of, okay, Fisk is coming back, what are they going to do with him now, and all that. So I wish they had a different post-credit scene to wrap up the show than what we ended up getting. In conclusion, Hawkeye is a very fun MCU Disney Plus show. It has some great acting, some cool action sequences. It does a great job balancing humor and emotional moments. And it finally gives Hawkeye his own property that gives him justice and his own time to shine, while also giving us some great character dynamics in the form of Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. So while it is the most easygoing and also the most rushed of the few, Hawkeye is still a fun time, and it's definitely worth watching. So in the end, I am going to give Hawkeye a good old A-. This was a fun time. It's not my favorite of the MCU Disney Plus shows, and Hawkeye isn't the most craziest of the bunch, but it's fun. It's a fun time. It's something I'm happy exists. It is one of the more fun MCU Disney Plus shows, and I love the Christmas setting from all this, and I liked that Hawkeye finally gets his own solo property. So, yeah, I had a fun time watching it. I'm so glad it exists, and I'm looking forward to rewatching this over the next several years to come. In the end, I do hope that we get a season 2 or maybe a movie to continue the story, because I would love to see what they do from here, especially with these characters. Those are my thoughts on Hawkeye. What did you think about this show? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.
This is too dangerous. Definitely not this one.
You don't have to say definitely like that.